Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
It is special election day here in San Diego County and across California. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A statewide proposition asks voters one question: should the state temporarily redraw its congressional districts to favor Democrats? KPBS reporter Andrew Dyer is at the County Registrar of Voters, where he says you still have time to cast your ballot.
California's Proposition 50 could be a deciding factor in flipping the House to a Democratic majority after the 2026 midterms. And Poway voters will decide whether to remove a city council member facing felony charges, including allegedly soliciting a bribe. All mail-in ballots must be postmarked by today to be counted. In person, there are 68 vote centers and 140 ballot drop boxes across the county, open today until 8 p.m. Anyone eligible to vote but not registered can conditionally register and vote at any of those county vote centers. Sean Brom is the Assistant Registrar of Voters. He says it's all about reducing barriers.
So we want to reduce as many barriers as possible when people are voting. That starts from mailing every active registered voter a ballot. And if people miss the October 20th voter registration deadline for this election, they can still go to a vote center. They'll just sign up through a conditional registration. Once that registration is valid, then their ballot will be counted.
The Justice Department is monitoring elections in some majority Democratic locations. San Diego County wasn't on its list, but Brom says they welcome public observation.
The process is transparent. People can go to voting centers, they can come to our office, but we haven't seen any disruptions out there. So people are at the vote centers observing as they should and observing the rules.
The county says to expect lines at its vote centers, but any voter already in line by 8 p.m. when polls close will still be able to vote. Results from early voting and mail-in ballots already received will be released shortly after polls close at 8 p.m. It'll take several days for all votes to be counted and verified. From the County Registrar of Voters, Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Today marks day 35 of the federal government shutdown, tying the record for the longest ever in U.S. history. Here in San Diego, nearly 400,000 people are waiting on CalFresh benefits. Recipients get $187 per month on average, and for many, that's all the money that they have for groceries. Local food pantries are already seeing a rush of people in need. The Magnolia Food Pantry in Imperial Beach told our media partner KGTV that it can't take on any new clients.
Our goal is to make sure babies go to bed with a full belly. When the moms come in asking for help, single dads, we have a few homeless people we try to serve also, but there is no one turned away because they are homeless or because there's no requirements here. So if you're on the list, you get in.
Today, the County Board of Supervisors voted to send a letter to the U.S. Department of Agriculture calling for the immediate release of SNAP reserves. The USDA said recipients would get partial benefits this month, but it's unclear when they will be issued. The issue of where RVs can park and when has gone on for years in the city of San Diego, and last year there was a settlement between the city and a group of RV owners who live in their vehicles. But as KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us, the owners now say the city is not abiding by the terms of the settlement.
But here we are again. It's November 2025, and the city has failed to live up to its part of the bargain.
The bargain attorney Ann Menashe is talking about is the Bloom settlement, reached after 7 years of court battles. The class action lawsuit challenged the city's enforcement against people living in their vehicles. Menashe filed a request with the court last night asking that the city be required to follow the terms of the settlement, which include ticket forgiveness of certain citations, limiting how police can enforce ordinances against vehicle owners, and mandated improvements improvements to the city's safe parking program.
Problem is, I ran out of money for food last month.
And for Kevin Denzek, who lives in his RV with his dog Echo, that led to a situation most of these RV owners are upset about. That is, they get parking tickets, either for violating the oversized vehicle ordinance or other parking violations, and the price of the ticket can set off a costly chain reaction.
I had to pay for one of these tickets. That was my food money. And so for the last 3 days last month, I didn't have food.
Menashe says things were going well after the settlement was reached last October. That was until July, right after the H Barracks overnight parking site opened in June. The city is now requiring people who live in their vehicles to park in that site or one of the other overnight lots or beside it. That's when, Menashe says, tickets started being issued big time. She says requiring people to park in H Barracks overnight and then move the next day and then back again gets very expensive.
It's 6 miles away from where people are in the day. There's no daytime parking nearby. They'd have to go twice a day back and forth. That's 12 miles a day on the kind of poor mileage you get in an RV. We're talking $250 to $300 a month.
Menashe and the RV owners here say police are ticketing them indiscriminately, which violates the Bloom settlement. But the lieutenant in charge of enforcing the safe parking ordinance says that's just not true.
That is not how we conduct business. There are 2 different veins in which we write citations, so I'll explain those. The first is oversized vehicle or OVO enforcement. That involves always a knock on the door, an interaction with the person if they're there.
The other kind of citations are the ones anyone can get if they're violating city parking laws. As for the city, it categorically rejects the assertions of the new court filing. The city chose not to provide anyone to go on camera, but they issued a statement which says, in part, a reasonable coastal location is available right now, the H Barracks, and the city encourages people experiencing homelessness in their vehicles to enroll in the safe parking program where they can receive supportive services to find housing. With both sides seemingly at an impasse, it will be up to the court to straighten things out. Menashe says it's not clear when the court will act. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Former Republican Vice President Dick Cheney has died at the age of 84, and according to his family, Cheney passed away last night from complications due to pneumonia, along with cardiac and vascular disease. Sunlan Sarfati takes a look at the life and the legacy of America's most powerful modern vice president.
What's going to happen in the long term? Richard Bruce Cheney forged an identity as a no-nonsense, loyal gatekeeper for George W. Bush, through whom access and influence flowed.
I picked him because he's strong, he's steady, and he gets the job done.
Cheney was a seasoned Washington insider long before becoming vice president. He began his public service career in the Nixon administration and then became chief of staff for President Gerald Ford. In 1978, Cheney was elected to Congress from his home state of Wyoming. He spent a decade there until the first President Bush asked him to serve as Secretary of Defense. After President Bush lost re-election, Cheney became head of the oil services giant Halliburton. It was a job that kept him steeped in foreign policy, and later the job became a lightning rod for his critics. When George W. Bush secured the Republican nomination in 2000, he tasked Cheney with vetting candidates for vice president, but ultimately offered him the job. Cheney's health was a major concern. He'd had 3 mild heart attacks and a quadruple bypass before he was 50, and suffered another heart attack shortly after the 2000 election.
I've got a doctor that follows me around 24 hours a day that comes with a job as vice president.
His health continued to be an issue once he was out of office. In 2012, at the age of 71, Cheney underwent a heart transplant. In the Bush administration, Cheney was considered a hawk who was instrumental in the decision to invade Iraq. Cheney believed history would prove they made the right move.
What we did in Iraq and taking down Saddam Hussein was exactly the right thing to do.
During the second term of the Bush administration, Cheney would find himself at the center of controversy when his chief of staff, I. Scooter Libby, was sentenced to prison in connection with the leak of a CIA agent's name. The president commuted Libby's sentence, but did not pardon him, a move sought by some conservatives. Late in his career, Cheney admitted he differed from many in his party on the issue of gay marriage.
As many of you know, one of my daughters is gay. I think people ought to be free to enter into any kind of union they wish.
In his 2011 memoir, Cheney accused Secretary of State Colin Powell of seeking to undermine President Bush by expressing doubts about the Iraq War. He also said Powell's successor, Condoleezza Rice, misled the president about negotiations with North Korea. Both have disputed the claims. Cheney had no interest in running for president after leaving office, but he continued to be an outspoken voice for the Republican Party. In Washington, I'm Sunlin Sarfati.
And Cheney is survived by his wife, Lynn, his daughters, Liz and Mary Cheney, and 7 grandchildren. Former President George W. Bush shared his condolences and called Cheney a patriot who was among the finest public servants of his generation.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, how today's state-level elections could affect the nation. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Donald Trump isn't on the ballot this election day, but the president and his policies loom large as voters cast ballots in the day's top races. Karen Kafa is in Washington with a look at Tuesday's key votes.
Governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey, the mayor's race in New York City, and a California vote that will tee up next year's high-stakes congressional elections, headline Election Day 2025. With a large population of federal workers impacted by the Trump administration's downsizing of the government workforce and the current shutdown, Democratic Virginia candidate for governor and former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger has tied Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears to President Donald Trump and his policies to try to boost her campaign. In New Jersey, Republican gubernatorial candidate Jack Ciattarelli, who was endorsed by Trump, has framed himself as a Jersey guy while trying to cast his opponent, Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill, who moved to the Garden State after her Navy career, as an outsider. And in New York City, Trump urged voters to support former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo over Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani. Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, has zeroed in on the cost of living in the city, which has resonated especially with young and social media savvy voters. Cuomo, who lost to Mamdani in the Democratic primary and is running as an independent, has argued Mamdani, a 34-year-old state assemblyman, is too inexperienced. And in California, voters are considering a plan backed by Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom to reshape the state's congressional map to improve Democrats' chances of winning 5 GOP-held seats in next year's midterms. It's designed to counter a plan signed into law by Texas Governor Greg Abbott that aims to help Republicans win 5 House seats there. Of course, those 2026 midterm elections are still a full year away, but both parties will be looking for insights into how to turn out voters in their favor when control of Congress is up for grabs next November. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
For the latest results on Prop 50 and the Poway City Council member recall election, go to kpbs.org/voterhub. You can now sign up for health insurance on the Affordable Care Act exchange. Open enrollment for 2026 health coverage began over the weekend, but you may be shocked by the spike in the costs. Jen Sullivan looks at the rising prices and why you're paying more.
Millions of Americans will soon be paying more for health insurance. That's because insurance companies on the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, are charging more for coverage next year.
It's basically unaffordable for many.
KFF, a nonprofit focused on health policy, found insurance companies on the Affordable Care Act are raising premium costs by roughly 26% on average in 2026, and there's not much people can do to lower those costs.
If you drop down, take a less generous plan, then you're going to have a higher deductible.
More than 24 million people get their health insurance through the ACA, and roughly 92% of them receive federal tax credits to help lower their monthly costs. But those healthcare subsidies are at the center of the battle on Capitol Hill. They're set to expire at the end of 2025. Democrats want to extend those tax credits.
If enhanced premium tax credits expire, we're expecting that on average, premium payments are going to more than double. That's a 114% increase.
The Congressional Budget Office estimates permanently extending the subsidies would cost $350 billion over the next decade. Many Republicans Republicans say they won't negotiate the subsidies until enough Democrats approve a spending bill to end the government shutdown. Caught in the middle is the American public. Without the subsidies, KFF says average monthly premium costs could go from $888 to as much as more than $1,900 next year.
It's a complicated situation.
It's not just ACA premiums going up. KFF found annual family premiums for employer coverage is higher as well. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
Downtown San Diego could soon see fewer valet parking services. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says fees for valet parking zones are going up.
Curb space in downtown San Diego is extremely valuable. Parking meters are bringing in a lot more money since the city doubled its meter rates earlier this year. And city transportation officials say curb spots set aside for valet parking represent lost revenue. The city council today voted to increase the permit fees for valet parking zones if they take up more than 2 parking spaces. Downtown hotel owners said the proposed fee increase is excessive.
It's a safety issue. We've all gone to hotels before. It takes more than just a moment or two to get out of the car, be greeted properly by the valet, unload your bags, especially if you have kids, and travel today is not easy, and it's never really been easy.
In response to those concerns, the council decided to set the valet permit fees at a slightly lower level than what city staff had originally proposed. Councilmember Sean Ela Rivera voted against that change, saying the higher permit fees were something downtown hotels could afford.
At the end of the day, curbs, streets, and sidewalks are public spaces. Those are assets that belong to San Diegans. And when private for-profit businesses use those spaces to generate revenue, I think it's fair that they contribute to the cost of maintaining and improving it.
City staff estimate the new fees will generate as much as $780,000 per year. That revenue has to be spent on transportation improvements, like filling potholes and fixing broken streetlights. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
As the climate changes, so do the methods to address its effects on San Diego County's coastline. KPBS environment reporter Tammy Murka shows us one way the Port of San Diego is trying to prevent erosion along the bay.
The tide off the Chula Vista shoreline was quite low on a recent afternoon. Heather Carroll says this is a good time to see what you normally wouldn't.
Oh, look at the upside-down jellyfish.
Oh, right there, yeah.
That's an upside-down jellyfish.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, I've never seen one. There's another one over there. And there. They're so little. Usually they're like this big.
Carroll is the Port's Director of Environmental Conservation. She says the presence of these jellyfish and other marine organisms may indicate the Port's oyster castles are working.
We're definitely going to monitor, and I do think it helps make a nice, calm, protected environment for some of these creatures.
Oyster castles are stacked concrete blocks with recycled oyster shells. Instead of building a seawall or installing large rocks to break the waves, the Port chose something a little more natural.
They can dampen down wave energy, which protects the shoreline from erosion, and then they create habitat for our native oysters and then other organisms.
In May, the Port planted 600 oyster castles at the Chula Vista Wildlife Reserve. It's not open to the public. Native marine organisms and migratory birds are protected there. The oyster castles are part of a larger project the Port started in 2021 to monitor wildlife growth and wave energy. Carroll says the Port will continue to monitor their effectiveness and see where else they can offer protection from erosion. Tammy Murga, KPBS News.
Let's take a look at those weather headlines. What we're tracking as we head into the middle and end of the week. Some cooler conditions for Wednesday, and the wind's going to pick up a bit in the mountains and across the deserts, but we'll have some drier and warmer weather returning Friday into the weekend. And as we track another storm moving into California, there could be some more precipitation returning into the middle of next week. Dry for tonight here with temperatures not all that bad, dropping about 56 in Oceanside, San Diego down to 60, Chula Vista upper 50s, Borrego Springs a cool 51, and Mount Laguna, one of the coolest spots on the map, down to 49 degrees tonight. The wet weather continues here farther north across the state here with areas of rain and thunderstorms, some soaking rain and some showers even down towards Fresno. We'll stay drier and across a lot of the Four Corner region start to warm on up through the middle of the week. Our forecast tomorrow shows some more clouds, Oceanside, Chula Vista. We'll get some more sunshine, though, building across San Diego. And a few clouds here, filtering some of the sunshine in Borrego Springs at 84 and Mount Laguna into the upper 50s. Some of that cooler air starts to return here across Northern California, Nevada, and into Utah, but the heat still continues across much of the Southwest as we head into the end of the week. We'll see a slight warming trend here, even along the coast, lower 70s, trend closer to the mid-70s by Saturday. We'll see a more increase in temperatures further inland here from 72 Wednesday to how about 80 degrees with plenty of sunshine on Saturday. Following the 5-day forecast in the mountains after some cooler, breezy weather tomorrow, we'll eventually return to the 60s as we wrap up this upcoming weekend. Looking at the forecast across the deserts, as temperatures will stay pretty steady into the mid and upper 80s with some of the warmest weather coming on Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm Ariella Scalise.
The pandemic has undoubtedly changed the way we work. Gone are the days of clocking in and out at the office every day. There's a lot more flexibility. But does working remotely impact men and women differently? According to some economic experts, it could.
Cheryl taking good care of you?
Yeah, of course she is. Always.
Good.
Yeah.
Manpower San Diego CEO Phil Blair lives and breathes employment trends.
We're churning. That's our business, is to churn people. So we see everything in the employment market, good and bad.
He says in return to office post-pandemic times, organizations are more comfortable with flexible working hours and locations, and it allows companies to keep good employees. But he says in-office networking, like so-called water cooler conversations, can be a crucial part of career advancement.
Whereas you bump in the hall, or you say, let's go have lunch, or join us, we're going down the hall, or I baked some cookies. You know, it's that interaction, it's that human nature of knowing people and trusting them. So you have to be visible to do that. On the screen, Zoom or Teams or whatever, it's not the same.
But data shows men and women aren't returning to the office at the same rate. According to a recent U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics survey, the percentage of men working from home dropped from 34% to 29% from 2023 to 2024, while the share of women working from home stayed largely the same at 36%. Other data suggests some women left the workforce entirely because of return to office rules.
Having a one-size-fits-all approach to management doesn't work.
Liz Lyons is associate professor at UC San Diego. She also helps companies with their hybrid and remote work policies. Lyons says for women, the benefits of remote work is less about location than it is about flexible working hours.
So I don't think it's like this unique moment. It's just that if we want to continue the progress that we have been seeing, allowing for individual needs and not taking a kind of blunt force approach to management, I think is important.
She says it's not surprising that more women opt for remote work because they disproportionately shoulder the burden of non-pay-based work, like child or elder care. But she says the lack of visibility could put them at a disadvantage that exacerbates income and wealth inequity.
The idea that forcing women into the office is going to fix this is not the right idea, because when that does happen, we're seeing women exit the labor force altogether.
Lyons says that managers can personalize work arrangements as incentives. An example would be allowing workers to choose days to come into the office to facilitate interaction. At Manpower San Diego, they're doing that with a weekly potluck.
I can see why this brings people back into the office very happily.
I am making a salad. We have Jamaican peas, rice and peas, and jerk turkey.
Manpower San Diego Vice President of HR Heather Whitley Quinn helps prepare food for the team and shares the Wednesday menu on social media.
You know, we've been really flexible, trying to be flexible in dropping kids off, picking kids up, coming in, and getting clothes done by 12:30, and then being able to scoot on and do what you need to do with your rest of your day.
Phil Blair says that digital-only work shows an employee is skill-oriented, but if they want to advance...
The money and the progression is leadership-oriented, where I see you work with your team, and wow, we got a star there, versus Well, she does all hers on Zoom, and I guess she's good, but we don't know.
So how do people who choose to work from home make their interactions count?
So women have to be a little more assertive when they are in the office, or find ways to, let's meet for a drink, let's have lunch, let's have dinner, and catch up.
I think the other thing is that all remote workers should think about just spending some time paying coworkers for no reason, sending them silly videos or whatever opens the door for these more serendipitous interactions.
In terms of like the risks that women take in having remote-only jobs, what can they do to prevent the recognition gap?
I think one is just to, you know, be brave and talk about your accomplishments. I know many women relative to men are uncomfortable with that, but just doing it and reminding yourself that, you know, if you want to be able to stay in the workforce, manage your competing demands on your time, which are so hard for so many women, speaking up for yourself can support that. And so if that can give them some courage to be uncomfortable in that way, I think that's really critical.
She adds that there have been no studies that show hybrid work is bad for productivity, yet many studies that show it is good for productivity.
So the productivity-based explanation for not allowing hybrid work, you know, just doesn't resonate, and I've never seen a good explanation for it.
While the workplace has largely changed from a single worker type, Lyons and Blair believe it is incumbent on the individual to close the gap in visibility while enjoying the age of flexibility. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.